Giannis Antetokounmpo had options. The Bucks' two finalists were the Heat and the Celtics, both teams he was open to. Boston dangled a former Finals MVP in Jaylen Brown. Miami offered a pairing with Bam Adebayo. He chose Miami. So, did Giannis actually pick the team that gives him the best shot at a second ring? Let's run the comparison. Here's the plan. First, the two real options on the table, then a head-to-head on fit, which roster maximizes Giannis, then a title odds comparison, and finally, the verdict. Did he choose the best path to ring number 2? The trade and the reporting are verified. The head-to-head projections are mine. Let's lay out the choice. This is Game is Culture. Quick thing before we dig in. If you like decisions broken down with real data, subscribe. It's free and it helps a ton. Now, the two options. Start with the choice he actually faced. The Heat offered a fresh pairing with Bam Adebayo, an elite defensive big, inside Pat Riley's win-first culture. The Celtics, a recent champions core, were ready to build around Giannis and Jason Tatum, sending out Jaylen Brown to do it. One path is a brand new duo, the other is plugging into an established contender. Both were on his preferred list. Put the two situations head-to-head for Giannis. Boston brings better shooting and recent championship pedigree, but Tatum is coming off an injury-hit season, and the roster takes a hit shipping out Brown. Miami brings an elite defensive partner and culture, but worse spacing and a lower starting point, a play-in team last year. Each option fixes one of Giannis's needs while leaving the other open. The Boston case is about spacing and pedigree. Pairing Giannis with a high-volume scoring wing like Tatum on a roster used to winning at a high level would give him the floor spacing his game craves. The risk? Tatum just played a season cut short by injury, and stripping out Jaylen Brown thins the supporting cast. It's a higher offensive ceiling with a health and depth question attached. The Miami case is about defense and culture. Riley's Heat get the most out of stars, and a Giannis and Bam frontcourt could be the best defensive duo in the league. The risk is the one we covered, two non-shooters with thin spacing, starting from a play-in record. It's a higher floor on defense with a real offensive question and a longer climb back to contention. By the numbers, score the two fits across what Giannis needs. On spacing and immediate offensive ceiling, Boston grades higher. On defensive fit and organizational stability, Miami grades higher. On the simple question of who he'd be the clear number 1 for, Miami wins. In Boston, he'd share the spotlight and the shot diet with Tatum. The profiles are close, but they tilt in different directions. Now, title odds, my estimate. The Boston path projects a touch higher on pure offensive ceiling and win now because of the spacing and the established core, even after losing Brown. The Miami path projects close behind, carried by elite defense with more long-term flexibility from keeping its young assets out of the deal. On paper, Boston edges it for next season, but the gap is smaller than you'd think. Quick halftime note, if you want every star decision modeled like this, stick around, and subscribe while you're here, it's free. Now, what Giannis actually optimized for. But title odds aren't the only thing a player weighs. Reporting says the Knicks were actually Giannis's top preference earlier in the process, before the deal came together with Miami. He clearly valued being the unquestioned centerpiece, the culture, and the destination itself, not just the cleanest path to a ring. That's human, and it matters, but it means he may not have purely optimized for championship probability. So, did Giannis pick the right team? My read, it's close to a coin flip, and slightly debatable. By pure title odds for next season, the Boston path may have been a hair better. By fit as the clear number 1, long-term flexibility, and personal preference, Miami is very defensible. He didn't pick the obviously wrong team. He picked a strong option that happens not to be the single highest ceiling one. Reasonable people will land on both sides of this one, and that's exactly the point. It was a genuine fork in the road, not an obvious mistake in either direction. And there's a real argument Miami is the smarter long game. By taking the youth and picks package off the table, Boston would have gone all in now, while Miami's deal, built around Giannis and Bam, leaves Riley more room to keep retooling. If Giannis re-signs and Miami adds shooting, the gap with the Boston path could close or flip entirely. The verdict isn't locked. It depends on what Miami does next. If Riley converts that kept flexibility into two legitimate shooters this summer, the Miami path could quietly become the best of all the options, and this entire debate would flip firmly in Giannis's favor within a year. It helps to remember why Giannis even forced this. He spent 13 years in Milwaukee, won a title, then watched the team fade into repeated early exits and finally missed the playoffs entirely. His whole motivation was getting back to a real contender. So the right team, for him, isn't just the best roster on paper. It's the one most likely to put him back in the finals before his prime ends. That lens shapes the entire comparison. There's also the apron reality. In today's restrictive cap rules, the team that trades for Giannis has to manage a brutal second apron, which limits how much you can add afterward. Miami's package, built on keeping young, cheap talent and picks out of the deal, leaves more room to maneuver than an all-in Boston move would've. For a star who badly needs help added around him, that future flexibility quietly matters a lot. And don't dismiss the intangibles in Miami's favor. Pat Riley's organization has a long, proven history of maximizing stars and winning in the biggest moments. From Shaq to LeBron to Butler, culture and coaching don't show up on a spacing chart, but they swing playoff series. If any franchise can scheme around an awkward offensive fit and drag a flawed roster deep into May, it's this one. That's a real, if unquantifiable, point for Miami. Where could I be wrong? If Tatum's health was a bigger risk than it looks, the Boston path's edge shrinks fast, and Miami clearly becomes the right call. And if Miami strikes out on shooting, Boston looks like the one that got away. These odds are estimates, and a single offseason move on either side could swap them. It's that close. The most honest takeaway is that there was no clearly correct answer here, only trade-offs, and Giannis chose the bundle of trade-offs that fit what he values most. So that's the call. By the numbers, Giannis picked a strong team, just maybe not the single best one for a ring next season, though Miami may win the long game. Do you think he chose right, or should he have pushed for Boston? Tell me below. And next video, how many title windows Giannis even has left at 31? And we are so close to 1,000 subs, so subscribe to stay up to date.